Making sense of division. To divide something means to split it into equal parts or groups. So in this case, we have 12 pieces of candy and we are going to split it into 3 equal groups where each group has the same number of pieces. So the size of our groups are the same. Each of the groups has 4 candies. You can also think of division as fair sharing. So if I have 12 candies and I want to share that equally so that it's fair among 3 people, then each person would get 4 candies. And you can see that each of these groups represents 1 person. So how can we make sense of dividing fractions? The first type of problem that I wanted to talk about is called a grouping problem. In this problem, we have 3/5 divided by 1/2. I want you to think about this problem as how many groups can I make from 3/5 if I know the size of the group is 1/2. So I'm starting with 3/5. And I'm going to show a model here using my 5ths fraction strip. And you'll notice that I've shaded in 3 of those parts to represent the 3/5. So how many groups can I make if each size is 1/2? If I divide the fraction strip in half, that makes it much easier to see that I can make at least 1 group here that has size 1/2. So 1/2 will fit into 3/5 once. But here I've got something that's left over. And when I look at it this way, it's really hard to tell how much of a group or what part of a group I have left over. An easier way to think about this is to use the common denominator strategy. So we're going to take 3/5 and 1/2, and we're going to make equivalent fractions that share a common denominator of 10. When I do this, now all of the pieces that I'm going to be looking at will be of equal size. So if you see here in my model, I now am going to use a 10th strip because I have 10 in the denominator. And I've shaded in the same amount. The amount has not changed in yellow. I've just rewritten this as 6/10 instead of the original 3/5. So now you can still see that 1/2 is the same as 5/10. So I still have that 1 group of size 5/10, but it's much easier now to see the leftover part of a group. So my answer here is going to be more than 1. I have 1 group. And then if we look inside the group or inside my circle, you can see it's made out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. I need 5 of those parts to make up 1 group. But you'll notice the leftovers, I only have 1 out of those 5 parts. So the leftovers will make 1/5 of a group. So the answer to this problem is 1 and 1/5. How many groups can I make from 3/5? The answer is 1 and 1/5. Now, why don't you try this strategy here? See if you can make a model, pause the video for a minute, try to come up with the answer, and then you can hit play to see if you are correct. So my model here shows 5/3. 5/3 is a little bit more than 1, so I have more than 1 fraction strip. You can see here I've highlighted 5 of the thirds. And remember, this division problem is asking how many groups can I make if the size of each group is 2/3. So I already have common denominators here. That makes that nice and easy here to be able to divide this up here. So I've got 1 2/3 and I've circled that makes 1 group. Now I still have 2 more thirds here, so I can make a second group. but I have a leftover piece. So how do I handle that? Well, look at how many pieces are in each circle or in each group. It takes 2 of those pieces, and I only have 1 of them left over. So my answer here is I can make 2 groups, and since I only have 1 out of 2 pieces from a group, the leftovers will only make half of a group. So my answer here is 2.5. The next problem, 2/3 divided by 1/6. Take a minute to pause and see if you can do this problem, and then check to see if your answer is correct. So my model here is highlighting 2/3, but now I need to divide this up into groups of size 1/6. And I don't see those size pieces here yet on my model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this further. If I cut each of these thirds in half, I now have 6. So when we make common denominators here, 2/3 is equivalent to, now you can see that there are 4/6. So my new division problem becomes 4/6 divided by 1/6. I have the same size pieces. This is going to help make this problem much easier. So every time I see a 6th, I'm going to circle it because that makes 1 group. And I have another 6th. I can make a 2nd group, a 3rd group, and I have enough left over here to make a 4th group. So the answer to this problem is 4. I can make 4 groups from 4/6 when each of the groups have an equal size here of 1/6. The other type of division problem that I want to talk about here is called a sharing problem. So when we have a fraction and we divide it by a whole number, I want you to think about this as you're sharing this among, in this case, 3 people. So we're going to start out thinking about part of a candy bar. We don't have all of it. Maybe your dog ate a little part of it, but we're going to start here with 4/5 of a candy bar. And we are going to share that among 3 friends. So you'll see my model here. I have a 1/5 fraction strip, and I've highlighted 4/5 of it. We don't have quite a whole candy bar to start with. So how can I start dividing this up and sharing it among 3 people? Well, I can take each of those pieces and I can cut them into thirds. So this little section, 1 person can get. They can get 1/3 of this section, 1/3 of this section, and 1/3 of this section. So 1 friend will get all of these red parts. Then I can look at this almost like a row here. The second row, those little parts will all go to friend 2. And the bottom row, all those little parts will go to friend 3. So that would be one fair way to share this candy bar among 3 people. So we have to ask ourselves, okay, we have 4 now shaded parts, but what is the size of each of these parts? So if I actually were to divide up the entire fraction strip into those same size pieces, we would have a total here of 15 same size pieces. I've shaded in red here one of those parts. That represents 1/15 of the whole. So in this case, each person is going to get not 1/15, but 2/15, 3/15, 4/15 of a candy bar. So when we do this, maybe you're remembering this looks a little familiar, like our brownie pan model, where when we really are sharing among 3 people, it's the same thing as taking 1/3 of it. So you can think of that as 4/5 times 1/3. And if I do that, you can see here when I multiply across, 4 times 1 is 4, and 5 times 3 is 15, I get the same answer that's in my model. So dividing by 3 is the same thing as taking 1/3 of something or multiplying by 3. Now you try 5/3 divided by 4. Here's my model showing 5/3. Now here I'm going to share this among 4 people. So how do I do that? Well, I can think of this as, this goes to, let's see, I'm going to cut this up. Now I've equally shared it among 2 people, but I have to cut this up again and one more time here so that I can share this equally. So 1/4 of this section will go to my friend 1. 1 of 4 pieces, or 1/4 of this section, goes to friend 1. 1/4 of this section, that one, and that one as well, all go to friend 1. So again, we have to look at how many pieces are going to that friend. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. And we need to know the size of this piece that we've been counting here. So if we look carefully, we can see one whole fraction strip here has been divided into 12 equal-sized pieces. So each one of these pieces is 1/12, and I have 5 of them. My answer here is 5/12. You could also think of this as I started with 5/3, and dividing or sharing among 4 people is the same thing as taking 1/4 of it. And you can see in the model, we took 1/4 of each of these pieces in our model. So we could choose to turn this into a multiplication problem and multiply 5 times 1 to get 5 and 3 times 4 to get 12. Okay, let's try one more. 2/3 divided by 3. So I have 2/3 of a candy bar, and this time I want to share it among 3 people. Pause for a minute and give it a try. All right, here's my model of 2/3. If I want to share this among 3 people, I'm going to cut the model here into thirds. So friend 1 gets 1/3 of each of these pieces. So if I want to think of this as multiplication, 2/3 times 1/3 gives me 2 times 1 is 2, and 3 times 3 is 9. You can see in the model here I've shaded in 2 pieces. And if we count the total number of pieces that make up the whole strip, there are 9 equal pieces. So my answer here is 2/9. I hope that helped a little. Thanks for watching.